I learned something this week that I had never known. I've been alive now for 36 years, and I have never known this, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel a little ripped off. I'm a little upset about it. So what I learned this week on TikTok is that on the top rack of your dishwasher, there's a button on the side that will drop it down lower to make room so like your wine glasses don't get broken when you shove it in. It actually fits. Does anybody else know about this? You saw that on TikTok? Changed my life. I feel like I've been shortchanged. So thank you, Gen Z, for enlightening me on TikTok. And it was so funny because I was watching this. I was like, oh my gosh, I tried it out this morning. I'm like, it's true. It works. And it was in front of me the entire time, like staring me in the face. And it was so simple. It was so accessible. My relationship with my dishwasher as of this morning has completely been transformed. And what I want to talk about today as we continue this series, Stop Chasing Unicorns, which is a series about dating and marriage, is I want to talk about something that is so simple, it's so accessible, it's been in front of your face the entire time, but if you'll actually do it, it will transform your relationship with your spouse that you're married to this day or your future spouse that you will be married to one day. Today I want to talk about this really powerful and obvious and yet often forgotten about principle that only exists in healthy marriages, and it's this principle of pursuit. Last week I started a kind of a talk within this series, a two-part talk within this series that I titled How Not to Get a Divorce. Because right now, a little over 50% of couples who get married end up getting a divorce in America. It's pretty crazy, right? And the problem is not that any of those couples on their wedding day are planning to get a divorce. No one plans to get a divorce when they get married. The problem is they actually have no plan on how not to get a divorce. And so over the last couple weeks, including this one, I wanted to bring a couple teachings on how you can actually develop a game plan on how not to get a divorce. And last week we talked about a really heavy topic, probably the heaviest topic we've talked on since reopening after COVID. We talked on how to make your marriage affair-proof. Because similar to divorces, no one plans to have an affair. And no one plans to be cheated on. No one gets married and says, you know, one day, 3 years, 4 years from now, I think this thing's going to get blown apart through infidelity. No one plans that. The issue is they have no plan on how to avoid an affair. In fact, most couples assume it will never happen to them. As if all of those who have experienced an affair, they were like planning for it all along. No, they didn't think it would happen to them. They didn't think that they would be the one who would cheat. And yet it happens again and again and again. And so last week we tackled a really hard topic on how to make your marriage affair-proof. I would encourage you, if you missed it and you're married or you want to be married one day, go to our YouTube channel and watch the teaching. I think it'll be immensely helpful. And if you're here and you're like, I don't need to watch it, then that's never going to happen to us. You need to go there like now and subscribe and download the video. Because I think it will be extremely helpful for you. But this week, just so you know, it won't be as heavy. But we are going to continue the conversation on how not to get a divorce. And today I want to talk about how do you have a marriage that thrives and flourishes? How do you have a marriage of your dreams that's full of pursuit? I want to talk about pursuit today. And I think if you will actually live out regular and consistent and intentional pursuit in your marriages, that it will transform the relationships that you're in. Are you with me? And here's the good news. Even if you're not married in this place, and you're like, dang it, like I'm single, I'm not married, I'm not even engaged yet, like is this message for me? It's totally for you. In fact, how we talk about marriage today and pursuit might even change how you date. It might change who you pursue and what kind of relationships you will even allow to be worth your time. And so whether you're married or you want to be married one day, I think this message is for everybody. So we're going to look at a really, really weird scripture in Genesis chapter 29. It's a really weird, random, obscure story, a story that you'll read, and I guarantee you'll hear it, and you'll be like, that's interesting. Have you ever read the Bible, read a story, and you're like, that's a little weird? And if you're like, no, never, you either haven't read the Bible or you're not being honest. The Bible's full of these stories, and this is one of them. It's an ancient story written in an ancient world with people doing sort of ancient things that, thank God, we've evolved beyond. But I think within this story, there's a picture of what pursuit can look like, and we can extrapolate some truth from this ancient story for our lives here today. So Genesis chapter 29, let's dive into this sort of weird story. It's about a man named Jacob. Jacob, if you recall a few weeks ago, I talked about him. He's on the run from, he lied to his brother. His brother said he's going to kill him, so he's running for his life, and he runs into this man named Laban. And he begins to work for this man named Laban, and he meets the love of his life. Her name is Rachel, and this is the origin of their story. It says this: after Jacob had stayed with Laban for about a month, Laban said to him, "You shouldn't work for me without pay just because we're relatives. Tell me how much your wages should be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The older daughter was named Leah, and the younger one was Rachel. There was no sparkle in Leah's eyes, but Rachel had a beautiful figure and a lovely face. The Bible's really funny. And this is one of the examples of the funny stories in the Bible, because essentially what the Bible just said is Rachel was hot. And Leah, she has a nice personality. That's essentially what the Bible just told us. And it says in verse 18, since Jacob was in love with Rachel, he told her father, "I'll work for you for 7 years if you'll give me Rachel, your younger daughter, as my wife." Now, I just want to pause there. That's quite some pursuit, isn't it? I will work for you for 7 years so that I can marry your daughter, Rachel. All my single people in the room, I want you just to take this note down. This is what pursuit looks like. And some of y'all are dating people. They wouldn't work for you for 7 years, let alone plan a date that would take them 7 minutes. And so I want to invite you to maybe up the ante a little bit and only pursue people who pursue you back. And if they don't pursue you before marriage, guess what? They're not going to pursue you after marriage. And so pursuit should be something you look for in a relationship. And Jacob here, he's like, I will work for you for 7 years to marry your daughter Rachel. And then it says this in verse 21, and this is admittedly where the story gets a little weird. It says, finally the time came for him to marry her. I have fulfilled my agreement, Jacob said to Laban. Now give me my wife so I can sleep with her. Single guys, probably not what you want to say to your father-in-law. But Jacob, he just goes for it, all right? And then it says in verse 22, so Laban invited everyone in the neighborhood and prepared a wedding feast, which of course is what you do when your future son-in-law says he wants to have sex with your daughter. Verse 23 says, but that night when it was dark, Laban took Leah to Jacob, and he slept with her. Verse 24, Laban had given Leah a servant, Zilpah, to be her maid. But when Jacob woke up in the morning, it was Leah. What have you done to me? Jacob raged at Laban. I worked 7 years for Rachel. Why have you tricked me? It's not our custom here to marry off a younger daughter ahead of the firstborn. There's some fine print for you, right? Laban replied, but wait until the bridal week is over, then we'll give you Rachel too, provided you promise to work another 7 years for me. And so Jacob agreed to work 7 more years. A week after Jacob had married Leah, Laban gave him Rachel too. Everyone turn to the person next to you and say, that was a weird story. Let's just say it out loud. We all know it. It's a weird story, a story in which we could have many probably fascinating conversations about. I'm sure some of you have some questions, like one, how did Jacob not know it was not Rachel, right? Like, what did Jacob, he partied a little too hard on his wedding night, apparently, because he did not know. But you also look at Jacob, and as weird as this story is, there's something about it that stood out to me, and that is that not only did he work for Rachel 7 years before they were married, he pursued her well before they got married, but even after he got married, he still worked 7 years in order to have her hand in marriage. He worked for her and pursued her even after they had already gotten married. And this brings me really to the main idea today. And that is that if you want a marriage to thrive, if you want your marriage to flourish, pursuit must always be a priority. Pursuit must always be a priority. It cannot just be a priority when you're dating. It cannot just be a priority when you're engaged. It cannot just be a priority on the honeymoon. But if a marriage that will last till death do us part, at the heart of it, of every healthy marriage I've ever seen, There is a commitment to pursuit, that they don't believe pursuit is just something you do when you have the time, but they believe pursuit is a priority, something woven throughout the entire story of their marriage. Pursuit must always be a priority. And just as I said last week, you don't get a divorce when you run out of love. Getting a divorce when you run out of love is like buying a new car when you run out of gas. Like, it doesn't make any sense. When you run out of gas, you fill up the tank. And when you run out of love in your marriage, and by the way, anyone who's been married for more than like a year knows this to be true, and this might be like kind of shocking to those who aren't married, there will be seasons your marriage is running on empty. There's going to be seasons where it feels like your love for your partner is running dry. And when you find yourself in those seasons, you don't go find another spouse. You fill up the tank. You pursue one another. You refill what has been emptied. And here's the thing. We all, on some level, likely know this, right? Like, I doubt any of you, I can tell already by looking at many of your faces, like, none of you, when I said pursuit should be a priority, none of you are like, what? What, pursuit should be a priority? Oh, I never thought of that. Like, none of you thought that, at least I doubt any of you thought that to yourself. It's not a revelation, and yet pursuit is one of the things that most often gets forgotten on the other side of I do, especially the longer you are married and when you start throwing kids into the mix. And as life gets a little bit more complicated, all of a sudden, pursuit, the thing that we're like, well, obviously you need that in a healthy marriage, is oftentimes the first thing to go. Yeah, so there's this rule about life that we all know, and that is that you cannot be lazy in any area of your life and expect better results, right? We all know that's true. It's like a basic principle of all things. You cannot be lazy in any area of your life and expect better results. You can't be like, I want to get healthy, and then just like eat everything in sight. You're just like, like every processed food that's put in front of you, carbs, pizza, everything. You cannot eat whatever you want and be like, why am I not healthy? No, because you can't be lazy and expect better results. You cannot spend money with no discipline, with no boundaries, with no budget, and then be like, why are my finances out of control? Why can I never accumulate wealth? I'm always going check to check. Because you cannot be lazy in any area of your life and expect better results. You can't show up late to work and be the first to leave and barely do the bare minimum at your job and ever expect to get a promotion in your company. Why? Because we all know this is true. There's no area of your life where you can be lazy and expect to get better results. And yet, even though we all know this to be true, we forget it so often in our marriages. That we forget that same principle that applied to your health, to your finances, to your job, also applies to your relationship and to your marriage. What you feed lives, what you starve dies. You cannot be lazy in your marriage and expect your marriage to thrive and to flourish. It takes intentionality, it takes effort, it takes a lot of hard work. You see, if the grass looks greener somewhere else, married couples, then it's time to water your own grass, right? If the grass looks greener somewhere else, it is not time to start fence hopping. It is time to water your own grass. And that's what I want to spend the rest of our time talking about today. What does it look like to intentionally water the grass of your marriage so that your marriage doesn't just survive until death do us part, but it actually thrives? Because this series is largely about how do you win in your most intimate and important relationships. Can I tell you what winning in your most important relationship is not? Winning is not surviving. Surviving is not winning. If you're just making it in your marriage, if you're just making it in your relationship, it's just like we're just kind of surviving. That's not winning. You need to shoot higher, have a higher goal in your marriage than that. What winning looks like is a marriage and a relationship that's growing, that's thriving, that's flourishing. And so what does it look like? Today I want to give you three secrets to a really healthy, passionate, thriving marriage. And none of these things are going to be things that you are like, oh my gosh, didn't think of that. No, these are going to be obvious things that we oftentimes forget. And yet when you do them, when you practice them, they'll transform your relationship. So if you're taking notes, whether you're married or want to be married one day, write this down. Here's the first secret to a marriage that thrives. When you think something good, say it. When you think something good, say it. You want to have a marriage that's full of pursuit, that's thriving, that's flourishing, then anytime you think something good about your partner, say it to them. Why would you ever rob someone of the gift of affirmation and encouragement? Why would you think something nice about them and be like, nah, I'm going to keep that to myself? No, when you think something good, say it. In Hebrews chapter 3, verse 13, it says, but encourage one another. What's the next word? Daily. But encourage one another daily. Not just when you're dating, not just when you're in the honeymoon period, not just when things are going well, not just when it's an anniversary. No, like every single day. How can you encourage one another? Hebrews says, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. So when you think something good, say it. Can you imagine how much better your relationships would be if you just simply practiced this first secret? But I'll be honest, this is something I've had to get a lot better at. I'm not naturally a words of affirmation person. That just doesn't come natural to me. I was not raised in a family where we were like, I love you. Like, we just didn't say those things in my house. I can count on one hand how many times maybe my dad said that. Like, it's just not something that I was grown up with. And so when I got married at 19, I brought that into my marriage. And Jenna's like, well, you never say I love you. I was like, but I didn't say I don't love you. Which is, I was 19. Give me some grace. I have a lot of work to do. But I realized, Travis, you got to actually speak these words of encouragement and affirmation regularly if you want to have a healthy marriage. And I want that. I bet you want that. So when you think of something good, say it. So I want to give you some general advice on what this looks like. And I'll preface this. This is very much a generalization. It may not be true for you, but it seems to be true for most people when it comes to communicating to your partner. And so I'll give you some general advice. If it doesn't apply to you, transpose it in your life and make it work for you. But here's a couple bits of advice I would give in terms of saying affirmations and encouraging your spouse. Men in the room, I want you to write this down. Men in the room, listen up. I want you to pursue her with words of affection. Pursue her with words of affection. Tell her what she means to you. Let her know how valuable she is to you. Affirm her and encourage her. And men, I want to make sure that you know this, that when you pursue her with words of affection, it's important that most of your words of affection that you give to your partner are what I would call non-sexual affection. Now, some guys are like, what does that mean? I've never heard such a thing. What does that mean? So let me break it down simple as I can. Non-sexual affection means, and men in the room, you may want to write this down. It is affection that is non-sexual. Right? Like your does not compute. Like it is affection where you say something encouraging and nice and kind and loving, not because there's some sexual prize awaiting you on the other side of your affirmation. You do it just because you love your partner, not because there's some boom, boom payoff on the other side of it. Are you tracking with me? Like men in the room, I just need to know that you understand. Let's just say it out loud, all the men in the room. Non-sexual affection. Say it out loud, men. Non-sexual affection. One more time, men. Non-sexual affection. Have you ever put those words next to one another? It's okay. Non-sexual affection. I need you to get this and understand this, because let's be honest, guys. Let's be real. We as men, we can make anything sexual. And married people are the only ones laughing in the room. We can make, your wife could be like, hey, can you go wash the car this weekend? Yeah, I'll wash the car. Can you vacuum the living room? Yeah, girl, I'll vacuum the living room all day. We as men, we just have the ability to do this. And I want to invite you, what would it look like for you to actually just extend words of encouragement and affirmation with no strings attached. You're doing it just because you want your partner to know how much you think about them. So let me invite you to take a step further, and I'll give the advice, another bit of advice. Men in the room. Actually, goes to both, but don't just say I love you. Take it further. You can be like, I love you. That's great. That's a good start, but you can go better. Instead of just saying I love you, I want to invite you to do this. Add a word after it and then fill in the blank. I love you because, and then fill in the blank. Don't just say I love you. That's fine. That's cool. But I love you because. And then actually tell them why you love them. Can you imagine the difference? Me telling Jenna, hey, I love you. I love you too. Or me going, Jenna, I hope she's out here to hear this. Jenna, I love you because you're so kind. Jenna, I love you because you're such an incredible mom. Jenna, I love you because you laugh at my jokes even when they're not funny. Jenna, I love you because you have patience with me. Jenna, I love you because you ooze kindness and grace, and every room you walk in becomes a more joyful place as soon as you enter into it. Do you hear the difference? It's way different than me just saying, I love you. I see you in the back, Jenna. I love you, girl. All right. So love, pursue her with words of affection. And then here's a second bit of advice. Again, maybe a generalization, but I think this is probably true for most men especially, is ladies in the room, I want you to write this down. Pursue him with words of affirmation. Pursue him with words of affirmation. Because I know that we seem, as guys, we seem really cool. Like, we try so hard. I was walking around Union Street yesterday and just watching guys, and they're just like, sup, bro? Sup? Sup? Like, I see these guys, and they're trying so hard, but ladies, can I give you an inside scoop on men? Most men are really insecure. And the only guys offended by that are insecure men. Most men are actually pretty insecure, and there's something special about when your wife speaks into your life affirmation. That they begin to affirm you, that they don't just tell you who you're not and what you don't do and how they wish you were different, but they actually speak into you who they see you becoming, and they build you up instead of tearing you down. There's just something about when Jenna speaks words of affirmation that just hits different than if anybody else says the same thing to me. Right, like after a Sunday, I might call Jenna, and usually she's one of the first people that I'll talk to. And every time I call her, I just want to know what she thought of the message. Like, because you may be sitting here and be like, this message is crap. I'm going to be like, I don't care. Yeah, I don't care what you think. You can email me at travis@idon'tgivearip.com. Like, I don't care. But like Jenna, I care about. Jenna, I care what she thinks of my message. And so I'll call her and be like, hey, what's up, girl? And then she'll be like, Travis. And this is the best. She's like, Travis, that message, that was a home run. Whoo! And I just melt. I'm like, I'll show you a home run, girl. Like, oh, it just hits different, man, because there's just something about when Jenna speaks words of affirmation that it speaks something into my soul that hits at the deepest of levels. And so, wives in the room, I want to invite you to not just talk about what your husband is not. And I hear this far too often. Oh, he's not this. Oh, he's not that. Oh, he always does this. Oh, he never does that. And I'll tell you what, I've never seen a husband become a stronger man. And I'm like, man, what happened in your life? I mean, you were cool before, but now you're just like a strong man, like a healthy man. What's the secret? And you know, my wife, she just criticized me all the time. She just told me every time when I failed, how I failed and how I always failed. Man, what's the secret? She just nagged me into being a better person. I've never, ever, ever heard that story, never will hear that story, but what I do see when I see men rising to their fullest potential is that they're often married to a person that is building them up and speaking into them their identity and is reminding them of who they are, because what you build up, you get more of. What you build up, you get more of. And when Jenna tells me I'm a good dad, I want to be a better one. When Jenna says you're so kind, I want to be more kind after hearing that. When she says, Travis, I love it when you listen and you're patient. Oh, man, I want to be patient now. I want to listen because she's building me up. She's affirming an identity that she's calling me into. And I want to invite you to do the same. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. You know, just because you think it, you don't need to actually say it. We're going to need that probably in 2024 with the next election to be reminded of, you know, like Like, it may be honest, but is it helpful? Like, it may be honest, but is it helpful? Maybe he's not some things. Chances are he's not. But is it helpful? Are you building him up or are you tearing him down? I'm not saying you never tell him when you got a problem, but I am saying, what's the end game? Just to remind him who he's not? Or when will you start building him up in return? So when you think something good, say it. When you think something good, say it. And then the second secret is this. It'll change your marriage if you start doing it. Anytime you think of something special, do it. When you think of something good, say it. And anytime you think of something special, do it. Of what James, the brother of Jesus, he says this: if anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it's a sin for them. Sort of an interesting scripture, right? Because Jesus, or James, the brother of Jesus, right, he says something about sin that we often don't hear. A lot of times in churches we hear that sin is the bad things that you do. But James here actually says, no, sin can also be the good things you know you should do, could do, and then you don't do it. Like James actually equates that to sin. In Hebrew, the word sin actually means missing the mark. So James here would say, hey, if you have a thought, you have the ability, you have an idea to do something that would help somebody, that would bless somebody, that would encourage somebody, that would really affirm somebody, and then you're like, good idea, then you don't do it, James would be like, you're missing the mark. You're missing the mark in your relationship. And I wonder how many marriages perhaps are missing the mark because you can't even remember the last time you did something special for your spouse and it wasn't attached to an anniversary. Like you just did it because. So when you think of something special, do it. Like if you talk to your spouse and they're like, oh my gosh, I think our kids are demon-possessed today. Like they're driving me nuts. They keep punching each other and screaming. They burned the house down. Okay, then maybe go get some dinner, come home early, and you put down the kids that night instead. Like because you're like, this would be special. They would probably appreciate it. Then go ahead and do that. Or maybe you're talking to somebody and they had a really rough day, or you know like they really like flowers and it pops in your head, I haven't gotten them flowers in a while. Go get flowers and bring them home and just do it. When you think of something special, do it. We got the holidays coming up. Anybody here big fans of Hallmark, those cheesy Hallmark Christmas movies? Yeah. I see some hands, all right. They make me want to gouge my eyeballs out, but Jenna loves them. And so I'll lay down my life for the one that I love, and I will watch those movies with Jenna, right? Because when you think of something good, you do it. It doesn't need to be extravagant. It doesn't need to be expensive. It can be as simple as a picnic in the park, putting together a puzzle after the kids are down, to preparing a bubble bath and giving them a glass of wine. Like, you can do all of these things. It's simple, and yet so often we miss it. But when you think something good, say it. If you think of something special, do it. And then the last secret I would give is this: when you want something different, be it. When you think something's good, say it. When you think of something special, do it. And when you want something different, be it. Like the hard reality about marriage, and any married couple, you know this, but usually about 24 hours after you get married, you realize something. You realize you are not married to a perfect person. You realize that you are married to a person that will not always meet your expectations. It's like the old saying, when you're dating, opposites attract. Has anybody ever heard that? See, the thing is that that's true when you're dating, but when you get married, opposites don't attract, opposites attack, right? Like what used to be cute before you got married ain't cute anymore when you are on the other side of I do. You know, when you were dating and you're like, oh, he's so chill and laid back. I love how relaxed he is. He's just, oh, I wish I could be that relaxed. Then you get married, you're like, boy, pick up your dirty clothes and put them in the hamper. It's 2 feet away from the bed. What are you doing right now? Can you help me? And now all of a sudden his chill, relaxed demeanor is not so cute anymore. And then guys, you're like, oh, it's so amazing. She's such a good leader, so driven, so determined. She knows what she wants and she pursues it. And then you get married and you're like, stop telling me what to do, right? Like you see this all of the time in relationships. And when you're dating, opposites attract. When you're married, opposites attack. And my point here is that there are going to be moments and many moments in your relationship where you can gripe about what you're getting. That you can gripe about what you're getting, you can gripe about who your spouse is not, and instead of doing that, I want you to consider, what are you giving? You can talk all you want about what you're getting, but I want to ask you, well, what are you giving? See, there's this passage of Scripture in Genesis when Adam and Eve are created, and we're told at the very beginning that God says, be fruitful and multiply. So from the very beginning, God tells us something about humanity, and that is that we are multipliers, that we have this capacity to multiply, not only on a biological, sexual level, but also, think about it. We have this ability to take an idea and then multiply it into a reality. We can start a business with just what started as an idea, or we can invest $1 and turn it into thousands or millions. Like, we have this ability to multiply as people, and it's true in our relationships as well. At what you give, you will often multiply in your marriage. So if you're talking about your marriage and you want something that you're different, you're like, I want to have a more romantic marriage. Be more romantic. I want to have a more grace-filled marriage. Be more gracious. I want to have deeper marriage where we have more meaningful conversations. Then be deeper. Start those conversations. Create it. I want a marriage full of grace. Be a forgiving person. Like, whatever it is you want, be it, because you will get more of what you give. So next time you're saying, I don't like what I'm getting in my marriage, ask yourself this really, really important question. Okay, what are you giving? Are you giving what you want to get? Because you will often get more of what you give. So if you think something good, say it. If you think of something special, do it. And if you want something different, be it. Be it. If the band wants to come up, we're going to wrap up here in a moment. And that's why, if you want your marriage one day or today to thrive and not just survive, I cannot say this enough. Never stop pursuing your spouse. And I'll tell you what, I hear this far too many times. I'll say, never stop pursuing your spouse. Oh, I don't have time. We're so busy. As if you're ever going to not be busy in life. But when you say things like this, that is not a reflection of your schedule. It's a reflection of your priorities. Or if you're going, well, it's too expensive. I can't go on dates. I can't afford to spend this time. I can't afford to do these things. I just can't afford it. Let me just write, you can't afford not to do these things. You can't afford not to pursue your partner. You can't afford not to continually say the good things when you think them and do the good things when you think them and give towards a healthy marriage. Why? Because a divorce never, ever, 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 hear me on this, a divorce never happens overnight. Never seen it, never will. Divorce never happens overnight. No one goes, well, it's Tuesday. What should I do today? I should get a divorce. That's not how it works. A divorce is always a death of 1,000 cuts. It's a death of 1,000 cuts, and the opposite for a healthy marriage is just as true, that a healthy marriage, hear me on this, a healthy marriage is not if you go on an extravagant date once a year for your anniversary. That does not make a healthy marriage. A healthy marriage is a culmination of thousands upon thousands of little moments and little choices. A healthy marriage is always the byproduct of the compound effect of 1,000 multiple healthy choices done over a long period of time. And so I'll say this, and I hope if you remember anything today, remember this, that your marriage is as healthy or as good as you want it to be, or it will be as bad as you allow it to be. Your marriage will be as good as you want it to be, or it will be as bad as you allow it to be. But it takes both of you. It takes both of you giving, not 50-50. One thing that always made me so mad when I watched The Bachelorette, and yeah, I watched The Bachelorette, don't judge me, I got nothing to prove. But I would watch this, and almost every season, The Bachelorette will say this thing: I'm just looking for someone who's going to meet me halfway. Meet me halfway. Just meet me halfway. That isn't healthy marriage. A healthy marriage is not when two people go, I'll meet you halfway if you'll meet me halfway. No. A healthy marriage is not 50-50. A healthy marriage is 100 and 100. It's not 60-40, it's not 70-30, it's not 90-10. It's 100% and 100% being given by both sides. It doesn't work any other way. Not if you might be able to survive at 60-40, but you don't want to just survive. You want to thrive. And so if you want to thrive in your marriage, it's got to be 100 and 100, laying your lives down for one another. Why? Because a half-hearted effort plus a half-hearted commitment will always equal wholehearted disappointment. Like a half-hearted effort, half-hearted commitment will always equal a wholehearted disappointment. So married couples in the room, or those who want to get married, let me just implore you to consider, don't just go halfway. Don't meet them at 50. Go 100%. In fact, you want to be a part of a really fun marriage? Make it a competition. Be like, woo, I'm going to out-honor them. Woo, I'm going to out-serve them. I'm going to out-give them. I'm going to out-forgive them. Oh, man, ooh, they gave me this gift. Ooh, that was a good gift, but I got a better gift coming. You better wait. Oh, he forgave me so quick. Ooh, I'm going to forgive him quicker next time. And it sounds funny, but wouldn't that be an awesome marriage? Wouldn't that be awesome where there's two people who are like, I'm just so committed to you. I'm 100% in for you. That's where a very special marriage is possible. I love what it says in Galatians 6:9. It says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So to my single or dating people who are not yet married but want to be married one day, don't give up. I was talking to somebody this past week. They're like, Travis, you have no idea how emotionally tiring this whole dating thing is in San Francisco. And you're right, I don't know. I got married before I could grow a beard. What do I know about dating? I'll admit it, I don't know. I'm sure it's really, really hard. But let me tell you, don't grow weary. Don't give up. Don't lower the bar. Don't settle for someone just because they're there. But keep the bar high and pursue someone that pursues you back. And I promise that if you one day want to be married, you keep that high bar, you keep Jesus front and center, I believe that you will get right where you need to be and you will be there with the person you're meant to be with. And to my married friends, don't grow weary in pursuing one another. You're going to go through seasons, financial seasons, family seasons. There's going to be seasons where it feels like the love has run dry, where it's going to be hard to pursue one another. But I want to tell you somebody, and maybe you're here and you're in a bad season in your marriage. Can I just tell you, I want to speak some life into you. A bad season doesn't have to equal a bad marriage. A bad season doesn't have to lead to a bad marriage. And no matter what struggles you may have, let me just tell you, don't let those struggles talk you out of what God wants to give you in your marriage and in your relationship. So let me give you this for Monday, and then we'll take a moment to pray and take a few minutes to respond. Here's the for Monday. Married couples in the room, I want you to have a conversation tonight. I know it's for Monday. It's for Sunday, today. I want you to do this tonight. When your kids go down, if you have kids, if not, go to lunch and talk about this after. What would happen if you both gave 100% in your marriage? What would both happen? What would happen? Talk about it. Dream about it. What would this look like? What could our marriage become if both of us every day were giving 100%? And then the next question, what will happen if you don't? What will happen if you don't? What would happen if you did? What will happen if you don't? And get a picture of the dream outcome. But just like we talked about last week, it's also helpful to have a clear picture of the nightmare. What will happen if we don't get this right? And so I just want to invite you as couples to do that. And if you're not married yet, perhaps tonight you just sit down and begin to dream about, what does a pursuit-filled relationship look like? What does that look like to you? Get a picture of the dream outcome in your mind. Write it down. Take some notes. Why? Because in 2 months from now, you're going to need to remember that when you're going on your next date or you're pursuing this person. Is this a person that is compatible with the dream that I'm believing in and pursuing?